Well, I still want to be Felix the cat. Uh, are you ready? Are your nerves
Try.
good?
Let's try. Let's just give it a go.
We'll give it a shot. We keep
You
it.
can edit, you know.
No, I can't. Hi, my name is Steve, and I watch way too many movies. In fact, I just saw one called The Duke of Burgundy, the third feature directed by Peter Strickland, who's sitting right next to me. It's funny when your film started out, whenever I see moths, I immediately think of a filmmaker named Stan Brakhage.
Oh,
And I think you know why.
yeah.
And it was interesting because as soon as your film started, I thought of it, and suddenly, an hour into the movie, I'm watching a beautiful recreation of a Brakhage film.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the only filmmakers I had the balls to actually approach after a Q&A. That was 20 years ago. I mean, he was in London giving a talk. I mean, it's weird for me because it was very hard to see Brakhage films back then, before YouTube and so on. And there was a book I read called Light Moving in Time by William Wees. I mean, in general, I come from Reading and we didn't have repertory cinemas there, so it took a long time to see films you read about. But the advantage of that was you could kind of imagine what they're like and sort of play these things out in your head. And I remember this band called Acid Mother's Temple saying the same thing about when they were in Japan, that they couldn't hear a lot of that rock music, and just it was their imagined version of kind of psychedelic rock. And yeah, so for me, you know, I couldn't see El Topo, I couldn't see the Brakhage stuff, I couldn't see Jordan Belson. There's so much stuff I couldn't see. It took me years and years to actually see those films. So I used to try and be like Brakhage, you know, with putting stuff in front of a lens, trying to paint on film was a complete disaster. It was not good at all. But I mean, you know, it's difficult with these things. You don't want to shoehorn in a reference. Oh, here's my little reference to so and so, and because it's a danger of it feeling as if you're kind of showing off your record collection. But it seemed to have a kind of potency to it that mirrored the anxiety of Evelyn. Not just Evelyn, but Cynthia. You know, this kind of, it's like a shared dream they're going through, and that seemed the most apt sequence really to convey that frustration and anxiety, but having moths invade the screen. And I mean, what we did is completely anti-Brakhage in a sense. I mean, superficially, it's total Brakhage, but you know, he would have hated digital. I mean, I think for me, the two filmmakers that you could never that are completely anti-digital would be Stan Brakhage and Peter Kobelka, who would actually use the film strips as paintings on a wall. So yeah, I mean, we didn't actually put anything on the film strips. It was all done with an effects company called Jellyfish, who put the whole thing together.
Now, of course, your last film, Barbarian Sound Studio, made clear references to the Giallo movement or Giallo cinema in general. This film seemed to also kind of take influence. I don't mean to keep going back to influence. I know that, but
It's my fault.
without naming names or any specific directors, I think just in general, your films are horror without being horror. I guess if you could describe to me how you sprinkle horror into the films, like the past two that you've made, and make it feel scary in a way that it's not really a horror film.
Well, I mean, The Duke, it was never my intention to make it feel scary. I mean, dark, yes. Gothic, yes. But I kind of see why some people get really irritated by it, because I think that goes to a point, you know, when, especially during the dream sequence where, you know, the skeleton is in the trunk, you kind of maybe expect it's going to go down a different path. But that was just a temporary blip in their relationship, and for me, it was always meant to be a very tender film. It is a love story. So I think maybe just subconsciously things crept in, maybe from the last film, and a lot of the soundtracks I like are from, you know, Giallo films, and maybe that informed it somehow. But yeah, the Duke, it was always meant to be. In my mind, you know, had I watched it as a stranger who hadn't made the film, I would never expect it to go into a. You always feel there are boundaries for those characters. There's always a trust, even when they're misbehaving. You know it will not get out of hand. You know, there's safe words. There is there's coercion, of course. You know, there's wrongdoing, of course. And I'm not trying to judge that, but I'm just showing it. But for me, it's clear, I think, but it never spills over into paraphilia, which is a very different subject. You know, something which is something that, I don't tackle at all. This is consent within certain conditions, you know, but yeah.
Sound. What does it mean to you?
Oh, don't ask me that question.
That's the two. That's no matter what movies you do. I think sound is what is a large part of what Peter Strickland is.
I think I just like it. That's a really dumb answer, but I don't know how else to say it.
Maybe it's a dumb question.
It's fine. I never went to film school, so I'm not good at talking about meaning. But
I can rephrase. You have bands in England.
That's more like it. Okay, let's go for that. Okay, yeah.
You have bands in England. I think you may have heard of some like White House or Throbbing Gristle. Even in Japan and all over the world, there's like Merzbow. There are noise musicians. I like you too. There are noise musicians that always seem to associate themselves with sadomasochism.
That's true actually.
Why does noise and BDSM go so well together?
I got no idea. I mean, I think for them, a lot of these bands were working in the early '80s when all that was kind of illegal. It was
S&M.
Yeah, it was a transgression. I mean, you look at the even the Cinema of Transgression in New York with Richard Kern and Nick Zedd, all those people. They were always messing. I mean, that's where I come from. I was still a schoolboy in the '80s, but my first film in the '90s was with Nick Zedd, so I knew a lot of those characters. I worked with Bruce the Bruce as well. So to be honest, any heterosexual vanilla sex felt unusual. It was just common to see whatever you want to call it. Exotic stuff going on. But yeah, certainly White House were always, and it's interesting. I think Steve Albini was talking about this, because I think he was attacked for some of his lyrics. And I think this goes back to what Lou Reed was saying. Yeah, but if a writer writes that in first person, you accept it, that it's a character. If a songwriter does it, you just automatically think it is the songwriter having those sentiments. So obviously some of the Steve Albini stuff and some of the White House stuff is incredibly dark, but in my mind they're putting on the guise of a misogynist. I don't think they're promoting that worldview. I mean, they're different things. There's deeply repellent, misogynists who are, this film doesn't go there. I mean, in terms of the sadomasochism, for me, it's kind of referencing what I said earlier, that if there's consent, then it's different. I mean, I remember I think the early 90s, there was a court case there were a group of gay men who were involved in sadomasochism, and the tabloids just love to sort of detail in lavish detail, what they're up to in bold lettering. And yeah, it's not on the curriculum for most people, but it's their thing. It's consent, and they were prosecuted. They were named. Their families were ridiculed. Their kids were ridiculed. And I just thought, well, who is the sick person here? But I mean, a lot has changed since then. This was 1990, I think. It was called Operation Spanner. I'm kind of avoiding your question about the link between noise and sadomasochism, because I don't know what the link is. But I am aware there is a link, absolutely. I mean, Merzbow especially. I mean, he... I can't remember the exact title, but yeah.
Have you seen the film he made?
Did he make a film?
Oh yeah. In Japan, it goes beyond. I know they have pink cinema in Japan.
Yeah, pink cinema, I know a little bit about it, but yeah.
Kind of goes on that, but this is more focused on just very minimal, anatomically correct gore, strap a woman down and rip her to pieces. And Merzbow made a film kind of like that. Not your cup of tea. Too much for you.
You have to see it to know the context. It's all about context for me. Without seeing it, I can't judge it. These things are, they're very fine lines between... It's that old thing of when, like in the film, when Evelyn says, "Can you let me go now?" and Cynthia says no. It's about context. It's about body language. It's about common sense. Just reading your character. That when your character says no, and is it the game version of no, or is it a genuine no? And in the film it's playful, but in real life it's a hot topic, and I think there's a lot of stupidity around it, that people should know the difference between a playful no and a genuine no, and because I think that's used as an excuse, that some men and some women like to say no as a game, but that's never an excuse if someone is genuinely saying no. Absolutely not. But again, this film doesn't go there, I think. But yeah, it touches on that thing. I don't know. I mean, yeah. I mean, this film doesn't go into any kind of non-consensual violent activity at all.
It certainly didn't feel that way, but it also didn't feel to me like a no wave or cinema transgression film. But hearing you say that gets my film nerd, bells ringing.
Well, I mean, I think the only maybe the reference for that was it just felt normal, and in this film, the masochism is normal. I mean, it's implied that a lot of people are doing it, and I didn't want to make it like this freak show. Here are this couple who are into stuff that you're not into. The idea was by normalizing it, you accept it a lot quicker, and by accepting it, maybe you recognize the emotions behind it that are similar to your life, and you recognize that they're lovers. I think if there's anything you're not familiar with, you perhaps, there's always a danger of dehumanizing people that you don't know, the way they operate. And so for me, by normalizing it, I think hopefully it there was some recognition there. So I think the idea was to start it as a very niche thing, which you initially say this is not me, but well, I'm guessing, I don't know percentages of who's into what, but I'm guessing at least half the audience would say this is not me, and by the end of it, hopefully say, actually this is me. And it's not even about the sexual activities. It's about career plans. It's about someone wants to move here, someone wants to move there. Where is the give and take in a relationship? Is it always one person sacrificing something for someone else, or is it one person repressing something to hold it back? And so it's kind of, for me, it's just a domestic drama. I mean, it's a domestic drama with a bit of window dressing, but it is a domestic drama. It's my attempt at an agony aunt film, really.
But at the same, while it is a domestic drama, it does play around with we don't have to go back to specifics, but it does play around with experimental film and different things. I've actually been told by a film teacher and people throughout my life that you cannot mix experimental film and linear narrative film.
I disagree. I hate film school. I mean, I'm jealous because I never got in. I was rejected, so I had this big grudge against film school. I mean, I hate it, basically. And I never... So being denied that, I guess I was very irrational, which is kind of my right as a filmmaker. I was reactionary, and so I never really was into theory. I was never into sort of backing things up. I try to be as free as possible. The danger is when you can do things for the sake of doing them, which is always a mistake. I think it's... you don't want to be contrived. But I think for me, you can inject a lot of horsepower into something with avant-garde techniques. I think, especially in music, if I think of, really famous bands like My Bloody Valentine or Jesus and Mary Chain. I mean, the way they collided these things such as noise and melody, it's just, they really, there's an enhancement there. It's not like trying to kind of do this crossover thing. I mean, I'm not into crossover. It's more about how can I enhance? How can I make this the most intense experience possible? I'm not into crossover at all. I'm not trying to broaden it out and let's try and get people in from that field of the audience. Let's try and get people from that field of the audience. Because my films are not commercial at all. They're niche films. But it is purely about getting the most intense experience possible. And that, when needed, you inject it with something from areas which are disregarded. I mean, really, I'm not trying to do this all the time, but the last 3 films I've done, I'm always trying to search in disregarded places or overlooked places, like sexploitation cinema. That's one of the few corners of cinema which is mostly seen as disreputable, but there's some amazing pockets within those, especially when you think that the producers, all they cared about was the sex scenes. Let's get the money shots in, but I didn't give a damn about the rest of the film. So the filmmakers were kind of free to do what they wanted, and then that's when you find really miraculous portals that you can go into. But also, I mean, music as well. I think so much I steal from music, not just sounds, but actual structure. In terms of the repetitions, in terms of these little jump cuts you can go into, like Nurse with Wound. I think some of their absurd jump cuts. I mean, I use that in Barbarian quite a bit. So it's always just trying to, I guess, replenishment. That's the word. By finding elements from the Avant Garde, which really understood. I think like the Avant Garde is they understood mood, they understood atmosphere. And cinema, when you write a script, it's just words and plot, and my job is to inject that script with a sense of, your taste, touch, all those things, atmosphere, all those things you can't put into words. And I think that's where the Avant Garde can really come in handy. So I can talk to your tutor if you want, actually.
As a filmmaker, do you see yourself exploring depths of other filmmaking that isn't exactly the Avant Garde or the sexploitation or Cinema of Transgression?
Well, no, actually, I'm working on something now, which is I just tried. Because I never try to have a sort of master plan that each film it's on its own terms. But I realised the last 3 films were kind of similar in terms of their sources. So I'm working on something now. I really want to kind of shed my skin. I think the danger is when you've done 3 films, you start to become aware of your style. And I never was. I tried to sort of just work as what's the word?
Free-spirited.
Just get on with it without thinking about it too much. But now with 3 films, I can see like a pattern that I want to kind of avoid now. And I'd love to go back to genre, and especially the avant-garde, because I'm always, stuff I genuinely love and enjoy. It's part of my background. But I want to work on something now that just sheds my skin in terms of all that stuff in the past, and just not always come up with influences and cues. Just do something kind of quite bare, just with characters and situations, and not try to dress it up so much. God knows, I've got no idea how it's going to turn out, but you never do. That's the thing. I mean, when I started this film, I swear I had no idea that 1, we'd get it made, and 2, we've been quite lucky with the reaction and so on. And
Finance yourself?
No. No, my first one, yeah, but that was the end of me. That exiled me from the UK, actually. No, that was a disaster. No, not. What was good about the first film was it opened doors to get financing in the UK. And I worked to low budgets. When I say low budgets, like 1 million, which obviously is huge for an individual. But for a film, it gives us freedom to be left alone. It gives us freedom to do what we want. To not have to worry about casting up and so on. We can just get on with it. And I'm extremely lucky at the moment. I mean, I had 16 years of bad luck from 1992 up until 2009. Was that 16 years? Oh, my maths is all gone. But anyway, whatever. But so, what was the question again?
As long as I'm yours, I remain alive.
Thank you for your time. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thanks.
Till next time.